seats down here in the front. Those of you that are coming on in, please feel free to take a seat and get comfortable. And I would also ask you, if you haven't already, to please silence your cell phones. I'm excited to welcome you this morning to the second breakfast briefing of 2019. My name is Hunter Hill. I'm a member of the BGR Board of Directors and the chairman of the Breakfast Briefing Committee. BGR is a nonprofit, nonpartisan public policy research firm dedicated to informed policy making and the effective use of public resources. BGR's reports identify opportunities and solutions on high-leverage issues in local government. We also monitor more than 70 government entities across Jefferson, Orleans, and St. Tammany parishes. BGR's goal is the improvement of government in the greater New Orleans area. Breakfast briefings further BGR's mission by allowing citizens and policymakers to discuss issues that affect all of our lives. We hope you will take advantage of the question and answer portion of today's program. On your seat, you should have a flyer that provides instructions on how to use the Slido app. Today's code for the Slido app is H826. Again, that is H826. And as always, if you prefer to write your questions, feel free to do so and include your name if you'd like to be identified. The best way to stay on top of all BGR events and research is to become a member. We regularly engage with our members about our public policy work. BGR values this dialogue, and we appreciate our members' support in amplifying BGR's good government recommendations. If you're not currently a member, we'd ask that you please visit bgr.org and consider joining the ranks of concerned citizens working to improve local government. And now, to introduce our topic this morning is Dennis Walter. All of you know Dennis these days as WWL-TV's former anchor. He continues to serve our community and is a very active member of the BGR board. Thank you, Dennis, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Hunter. Good morning, everyone. People standing in the back, we have places you can sit right up front. Come on down. I'd like to express my gratitude to Iberia Bank for its generous sponsorship of BGR's Breakfast Briefing Series in 2019. Their support allows BGR to make these events free to the public. I also want to acknowledge BGR's President and CEO, Amy Glowinski, and BGR's award-winning staff. They do a fantastic job of planning and executing these quarterly events. Ghassan Korban took the helm of the Sewage and Water Board last September at one of the most difficult times in the agency's history. The S&WB had been without a permanent executive director for about a year. Top management departed not long after a drainage system failure in a 2017 storm led to widespread flooding. A succession of interim leaders oversaw emergency repairs to the drainage system that cost the Sewage and Water Board more than $80 billion and depleted the system's cash. In the S&WB's water and sewer systems, interim leaders confronted a crisis of billing and collection that affected thousands of customers. To help address these and other challenges, Mr. Korban brings more than 30 years of public works experience. He came to the S&WB from Milwaukee, where he had served as Commissioner of the Department of Public Works since 2011. Now, just over 8 months after he began here, the S&WB still has far to go. The cost of emergency repairs has left the drainage system in a precarious financial position. A recurring headline from the state legislative session is the city's effort to obtain an infusion of new revenue for the system. In addition, the S&WB estimated in April that it is still owed about $73 million in uncollected water and sewer system revenue from the billing crisis. Meantime, the system's aging infrastructure continues to cause problems. There have been several unplanned boil water orders in the past 2 years, including one in early May, following the break of a 114-year-old water main in the uptown area. And just this past Sunday, heavy rainfall outpaced the system's capability to drain water, and many cars and some buildings were again flooded. Here today to share his perspective on these and other challenges facing the Sewage and Water Board and to discuss his vision for the agency's future is its Executive Director, Ghassan Korban. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Korban. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? That's very good. Thank you, Dennis. great and bleak introduction. Now that he puts it together, I'm wondering what I'm doing here. I'm often reminded when I speak to a gathering like this of church, and the reason I say that, the first row is always empty. And unlike church today, for the next hour or so, we will not be doing any collections. So with that, I invite you to join me. So again, thank you so much for being here. Just 1 hour. Thanks again for joining us this morning. I'd like to start by thanking BGR for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak to you and give you my perspective on the Sewage and Water Board and things that I've observed and learned in the last 8 months or so. I want to start by recognizing my leadership team. If you indulge me for a second, and I want to ask them to stand up for a second, maybe just give them a round of applause. And I start by doing so because these are the folks who get up every morning, fight the fight, and win it every day. And without them, I truly cannot do what I do. And the hard work of the men and women of the Sewage and Water Board has been remarkably encouraging at all layers of the utility. I also want to thank the Mayor Cantrell, for using words initially when she lured me into this job and convinced me to take it. And 8 months worth of assessment and evaluation, and as daunting as the challenges appear to be every day, and I have to be honest with you, some days, the idea of having a one-way ticket back to Milwaukee does cross my mind. But it's her actions that have kept me on this job, truly. And beyond the mayor, it's the collective encouragement that the community has given me has been tremendous. And I'll get to the deal that we've heard about a couple of weeks ago, and I will thank the people who were involved. But I want to maybe talk a little bit about the recent event, the Sunday event, just for 30 seconds, and I'm happy to talk about it more during the Q&A session. But I just want to say that we were as ready as we can be. The system was at its fullest in terms of the capacity, power capacity, and in terms of pumping capacity. We run about 115 pumps on daily basis, ready to function and operate out of about 120. And that's a very normal state of our capacity on any given day. But what happened Sunday is that you had about an 8-inch storm in places where it just overwhelmed the system. And I can assure you, having experienced flooding in Milwaukee, where we've had 700-year storms, any system will be overwhelmed at one point. And that's just a fact of life. And as we move forward, and we can talk about this in a second, there are things that we can do to improve and better the system and increase capacity, but we can never be assured that there is no storm that we cannot manage. There will always be an event that will overwhelm the city, and that's just a fact of life. So I'm happy to talk about the specifics and the particulars of that event. I just want to make sure that I share that perspective. So I want to talk a little bit about the deal before I go into kind of the state of the utility, so to speak. And this came at a time where, as Dennis stated, because of the August event, we spent every bit of cash we had, and some, in the tune of about $35 million. So we walked into 2019 budget with about $35 million in debt. And this is specific to the drainage division. So we have the water, we have the sewer, and we have drainage. And when you walk into a 60 million roughly, or actually more to be precise, more $56 million budget with a $35 million debt right off the bat, you're left with $21 million to operate a $56 million budget or operation. That was as bleak can be. And when I went to the mayor and started explaining this and started talking to the business council folks, and it became evident that we were heading into bankruptcy. There was no questions about it. And that full understanding and collaboration that went in an effort to go to the state, work with the governor, and bring back an awesome, timely deal that without it we would be looking at literally shutting down operations and drainage right at the beginning, entering into the 2019 season. So I couldn't be more thankful, not only to the mayor, but the business council, the hospitality industry, obviously the governor and the staff for coming together and bringing this very, very crucial deal for us. So simply, we have a $50 million in basically combination of cash and grants coming to us in 2019 that will allow us to pay all our debts. And if anybody in this room who is a contractor or vendor, you probably already called to see when your money's coming, and that's happened. I mean, the minute the deal was announced, the phone really blew up. And legitimately, people have been anxiously waiting for their payment, and we were very anxiously and uncomfortably waiting for that as well. And more importantly is that recurring dollars that will be coming in to us in the many, many years to come that really help us dictate the path that we take as we move forward, and then we can talk a bit more about the immediate needs and the vision that we have for the utility as we move forward. So again, thank you for everybody who was involved. I can't name everybody by name naturally, but you know who you are, and I'm very, very thankful. One thing I neglected to do is I wanted to recognize also the 3 board of directors who are present here. I have Coco Sloss and Janet Howard and Alejandra Guzman, 3 of my board of directors, basically 3 of my bosses. And as you may be feeling special now, don't, because you are 3 of 400,000 bosses that I have. So that's how I see it. That's how I see I'm a public servant, and every customer we have is our customer for sure, but also our boss. And that's why I come out and talk to people so I can hear and listen to their concerns as we move forward. So what I have in store for you as we move forward is basically assessment of parts of the utility, not everything that we've been observing and evaluating just because of the time limitation. But I picked a couple of key and crucial, and I know near and dear to your heart in terms of how it impacts your quality of life. So the first thing is, here's what I found when I first took office. Actually, I came and visited the plant, Curtin plant, about a month before it started. So it was sometime on a steamy, hot August day. Went in and visited the sites, and I was, much to my shock, this is what I saw. I saw 3 of the 5 turbines are steam reliant. They use steam, very old, as you can see, over 100 years in some instances. And while we've been investing in repairing them for years, and it became very evident to me that the time has come, that we can no longer continue to invest in these machines. It's been remarkable what our men and women have done with these machines to make them operate and keep the city dry, but these are very cost ineffective. We spend 4 times as much money on generating our own power versus buying it, and we spend a lot of money on parts and maintenance. It is just not a sustainable situation, and it became extremely evident that we need to move forward away from using steam and into other alternative energy, either purchased or renewable energy as we move forward. And the bottom two pictures are a picture of two major drinking water pumps that also use steam. And again, the same story, very ineffective in terms of cost and operation and maintenance. What I also found is another astonishing statistic, the state of our water main distribution system. So we have about 1,500 miles of water distribution, water mains basically. And if you have take about a 100-year replacement cycle, and you divide that up by 20-year increments, you will have maybe 300 plus or minus miles in each of the two 20-year increments or segments. And then the top one would have 0 in it. While in fact we have over 500 miles of the 1,500 that is older than 100 years old. That's an astonishing figure. And if you look on the bottom where you would expect to see 300 miles, you have almost none. So this explains why we have this. So many of you probably were inconvenienced or maybe even suffered because of this specific waterman break on Claiborne on May 3rd. I have never seen this. I've been in this business for 30 years plus, and I've never seen a water main break with this gaping hole. This main, I have to assure you, that has been leaking for years. For years. This didn't just happen overnight. It takes 1 second and it just slight change in pressure or shift in the soil, and then it just pops. And that's what you see. And that's why we have such a struggle throughout the city with leaky mains everywhere, and leaky hydrants, leaky valves, leaky meters everywhere you look, and I'm sure you've experienced that yourselves. And that's why we try to keep up with all these conditions the best we can. One challenging situation with this particular one, where a water main break typically would take no longer than 8 hours, is our valves that are part of the distribution system is so old that when you need to operate one, you find that it's frozen, and typically in the open position. So when you have a main like this and you go to isolate that main so you can fix it, and you can't find a valve to shut the main and isolate it, and then you keep going farther and farther to the next valve until you get lucky and find one, and then you can isolate the main and you fix it. That's why it took 24 hours. We had a lake on Claiborne for that long. The inconvenience and the basically suffering that has to, if you live right in front of them, you walk into water to go to work or to just go to the grocery store for that period of time. And that's why you have boil water advisories throughout the city. And I have to tell you, coming from Milwaukee, I had never heard of boil water advisory until I got here. And I say that not really to get a chuckle. I swear it's real. I mean, there's a lot of boil water advisories in such a short time that impacts the lives of our citizens every day. And it's due to the fact that our system is so old. And the majority of these are due to water main breaks. Some are due to maybe some power-related issues, but predominantly it's because of the age of our water distribution system and its condition. This is an example of why then we lose so much water. And when you lose more than half of what you make, and we're making twice as much water as we need to, because our water system continues to leak. And if you compare it to the national average, we are 3 or 4 times as high in terms of how much water we lose. And if you look at how many repairs you experience in this city versus the national standard, is about 5 times as high. I think I made the point when it comes to water. But I want to finish off with this dramatic picture. And this happened about maybe a month or so ago near the Lakeview area. I think this was on Topaz Street, I believe. And I can joke and say, you know, we provide free entertainment for the Johnson family, or maybe we're inspiring them to go to the Grand Canyon on a trip. But I can't really. This is very serious. This is a quality of life. This is as real as it gets, and that's why when I look at our investment and the gap between the need and the funding, it's just staggering. And you're gonna continue to hear me advocate for that until my employment is terminated and said. I mean, this is nobody should experience this. Nobody should leave their house, look out, and there's a gaping hole 2 inches away from their foundation. Well, it's not all so bad. So I have a glimpse of hope. So when it comes to our sanitary sewer system, things look a little better. And I have to tell you the size of the scale of the system is similar to our water distribution system. The only difference is we have been under consent decree by the Department of Justice and the EPA since 1997, dictating they had identified as a system as a failed system and identified specific projects and specific areas that needed attention, and it was all spelled out. And I can tell you that we are on track to be fully compliant with the consent decree, satisfying both the DOJ and the EPA by the end of 2025. This year we have a few projects in the New Orleans East Basin, allowing us to move that into the completed basin. So that means all the projects are completed and all the required monitoring of the system is taking place to their satisfaction. So that gives me some glimpse of hope, and obviously it's happened because we were made to do the right thing, but nonetheless the results are good. One thing I want to talk to you about is what a pleasant finding when I came here. I found a great appetite for collaboration, and the mayor had really made it clear to me that she will not tolerate anything but collaboration across all agencies that she's in charge of. And sure enough, she put me together with my counterparts at DPW, and we looked at where are the overlaps that exist and what can we do to make our jobs better, how can we complement each other. And these are the 3 main areas that we've been collaborating on. Obviously, we have the drainage system that's somewhat, I guess, nothing that I would want to create in terms of how the system looks like, but it's a system that belongs to 2 entities. Part of it belongs to DPW, part of it belongs to us. Working collaboratively, we're making it work, but ultimately we both agree that it should belong to one entity, and the entity should be us. The only challenge is that when you assume a new responsibility that is staggering, if it's a large system to absorb, some funding has to come with it, otherwise you're setting up yourself to fail. So we're working toward that, but that again is under the very collaborative sense and direction. So I'm very encouraged about that. Many of you know that we have bought a $1.67 million grant, EPA grant, that is being spent both, again, jointly between DPW and Sewage and Water Board, where the projects are sequenced logically, like they're supposed to, where no paving project takes place without assessing and, in most cases, replacing the water main and the sewer main underneath. So it's a holistic approach, and it's the only way to do it on behalf of our citizens in terms of a better use of our money, most cost-effective approach, and less destruction in the future. So we're really heading toward very, very good direction. And in the Max Pay program, where we've recognized that there was a discrepancy between we would go into a street and make a repair, but then it was on DPW to make that repair. And for whatever reason, probably a lot of factors, there were a lot of backlog happening because these surface cuts were not being repaired. And then that was one of my initial observations throughout the city, that something was wrong, something's being neglected. And it didn't take us long really to put our heads together and come up with a program addressing all the backlogs, where DPW is taking that effort on, and then the Sewage and Water Board making the commitment to take on anything that we create as of the beginning of this year, moving forward and acting like a utility should act, be responsible for everything from A to Z. So not only will we fix the water main or the sewer main, we'll also fix the roadway above, and that's the most effective way to do it. So very encouraging in that regard. So with that, we have identified some immediate actions or immediate priorities. And when I say we, collectively, the leadership team and many other folks in the utility. And one thing that became very evident, you have to know where you're going to get there, right? So it was a collective understanding that we need to work on a master plan that includes everything that the utility is responsible for. So it's the water, it's the sewer, it's the drainage, and it's also the power. And without that, really, you don't know what level of service you are providing your customers. So this is a major effort. It's an expensive effort, but it has to happen for us to really improve and move the utility forward. Without it, you're eclectically just fixing this, fixing that, and you just don't know where you're going to be next year or the year after. So I'll be pushing very hard toward that effort. And as you can see, there's a lot of other things that we're going to use the $50 million, what's left of it after we make our vendors and contractors whole. We're going to start going in getting away from using steam and utilizing more electric power, mostly purchased, and then we need to obviously invest in a frequency changer to allow us to do that. And by simply doing that, this is about a $10 million effort that will allow us to decommission turbine 1 and turbine 3 that I showed you pictures of. Those will be set aside and will not be used anymore. And that alone, the $10 million will pay for itself in a handful of, if not less, years in terms of cost savings from energy use. We need to weatherize or harden turbine 6, as many of you know. It's a fairly new, very efficient turbine, except it has limitations in the winter. And we discovered earlier this year that during a cold temperature time where we needed it and we couldn't use it, and it was not a desirable situation. So we're definitely going to focus on getting that hardened as we move into the cold season, December and January 2019 and 2020. And one crucial step we need to do is invest in our automated metering infrastructure. Why that is key is because as many of you, our billing system, while we've made significant improvements in that regard, we need to start paying attention more and more to how our customers see us and how we're impacting them either positively or negatively. So we are spending a lot of time improving that experience. We are nowhere near where we want to be, but these are matrices or statistics that show progress we're making in the favor of our customers. And I won't go through the numbers, but obviously they're all going in the right direction. And finally, I want to just talk about, in general, the customer service or customer advocacy, one thing we want to focus on as we reorganized our utility and the org chart, it looks like this. This is the proposed. We elevated two key things. One is the customer service advocacy office to work on behalf of the customer on many facets, on many aspects, not only just billing, but we interface with our customers on a daily basis in more ways than one. And we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to provide the best service we possibly can. And we can only do that if you have somebody who advocates on behalf of the customers and change the culture from within, so we are more sensitive and more caring toward the people that we serve. And the last thing that we've made a significant change in is we elevated the internal chief auditor position. This is an internal audit unit that we elevated close to the board of directors, so they have a clear direction as to what to focus on, and sending a message to the world that, hey, we want to hold ourselves accountable. We are very scrutinized utility, as many of you know, and we want to be ahead of other auditing agencies and do better on our own without being told. And obviously, as a result of that, a better performing agency will happen, and obviously better customer service for all the people that we serve. So with that, that's my presentation, and I think I'm on time and I'm open to questions.
Replacing some pumps and things like that, but how do you propose upgrading this ancient system of sewer, water, and drains? How do you propose replacing that or upgrading?
One pipe at a time and one pump at a time. Well, I think part of this effort is to really generate enough understanding and collective embracement of where we are in terms of the need and where the funding is, and understanding that there's a huge gap that has to be filled. So that's step one in terms of people like you, all well-read and concerned about the conditions of our utility, because it impacts you, as I clearly demonstrated. You start advocating for that, right? And then when the funding starts happening in terms of a long-term, long-range, committed, steady and consistent funding, then the work becomes the easy part. And truly, I mean, it will take years, naturally it will take a great deal of effort, but it can happen. But the first step is the collective understanding and advocacy for more funding that comes to our work.
The legislature appears poised to direct new revenue to the city infrastructure. How will the new revenue affect the administration's plans for pursuing a drainage fee?
I think the stormwater management fee is an inevitable conversation. As I showed you, some of those funding is filling some of the gap. But if you really look at the big picture and you start understanding the level of service that this city deserves, the conversation will be had, and without a stormwater management fee, we cannot move forward in any significant or meaningful way.
Member of the audience, Yasmin asks, it is evident that we will not secure the funds to upgrade the drainage system in New Orleans. What is the BGR, S&WB doing to live harmoniously with water?
If you don't mind, do you mind repeating that? Sorry.
Basically, what is the New Orleans Sewage and Water Board doing to live harmoniously with water?
Today, we're not doing very well living with water, quite honestly. But as we move forward in part of the master plan, you have to be very comprehensive in how you address that. And while we will improve our pumping capacity, our drain infrastructure in a very meaningful way, but we cannot neglect the fact that a green, sustainable infrastructure solution that has to be layered on top of that in order to enhance the protection of our city. in a significant way. And what I mean by that is that it has to be done at such a large scale in order for it to be effective. It's going to be costly, it's going to be tremendously large in terms of its footprint, but that's when you start actually comfortably saying, hey, this is a city that is managing water and we're living with water. But today, we're certainly not. We're putting up with water today.
Member of the audience asks, what have been the impacts of the increased prevalence of flushable wipes on the sewer system? We have seen major issues in other cities.
I honestly cannot tell you that it has been an issue for us. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm not aware of that issue being one in the forefront of our issues that we're tackling.
NJ Matei asks, are you moving the New Orleans Sewerage and Water Board away from power generation to purchasing power from an electric utility?
Yes, I mean, that's definitely the direction we're going, that we need to go into. And if it's not purchase power, where it may become maybe the logical, I guess, alternative today, we'll continue to look at other alternatives such as renewable energy, or even making our own power in a much more efficient way. And so that everything is on the table, but what's not going to happen is continue to use steam to generate power, because it's the least cost-effective way to do it.
Member of the audience, Donald Fallis asks, have you resolved the accounts receivable issue? If not, will salaries be lowered for the S&WB, or will necessary services be reduced?
We work every day as hard as we can to collect every dollar that we are owed. And the number is large, and I have a breakdown of it. And we recently arrived at a very reliable number of roughly about $73 million that is owed to the utility by its customers. Part of that is the first 20 million or so is just a everyday kind of current invoicing that will come in a very routine fashion. There is a portion of that money that is out there that will be very difficult to collect, but we work very hard on collecting every bit of it. But does it impact the overall budget? It doesn't, because some of it is already factored in terms of revenue, expected revenue versus what we write off. So are we lowering salaries to our employees? No, we're not. We're not contemplating that at this point.
How would you describe the performance of the employees you have inherited, basically?
I have been more impressed with that than anything else in the Sewage and Water Board. There's a tremendous amount of experience and willingness to do everything possible to do good work. I think they are somewhat demoralized because we get somewhat of a negative attention. They take it personally, but despite that, they work every day as hard as they can to make us proud, truly. And I cannot be more impressed and more proud by our men and women who keep the city dry, who deliver drinking water every day, and despite all the deficiencies in the system.
Member of the audience asks, and this might be for the Department of Public Works actually, but I'll ask it. What's the status of clearing catch basins? How many are being cleaned per day? And is there a place to see the daily list of those that are cleaned each day?
That certainly is a question for DPW. I can tell you they have a program. It's very intentional in terms of addressing a specific number. I can't tell you the exact number, but the day will come where that question will be mine, and hopefully the funding will be robust enough that we will that catch basins and clogged catch basins and what have you will not be an issue for us.
Should there be a system where we can see online which basins have been cleaned and that sort of thing?
Absolutely, and if nothing else, it encourages you to maybe adopt a basin. I mean, sometimes it's as easy as to removing some of the brush off to the side, allowing the water to enter. I mean, literally a 2-minute job that helped alleviate some flooding in front of your house. But yes, you deserve to know what we do on your behalf. Transparency is key, and it does actually help and appreciate the services that we provide.
Member of the audience asks, how do you change a system that includes a civil service system that's frozen in place?
How do you change?
You change a system that has a civil service system frozen in place.
Well, you work with the civil service folks. daily basis, addressing one issue at a time. And at the end of the day, you look for as much flexibility and autonomy as you can. In our case, we are a utility that is folded under a larger umbrella of government agencies. And what we continue to work for every day is a little bit more flexibility. And again, acknowledgement that what we do is different than others, so we deserve an independent or a different set of rules that allow us to be a little bit more robust and more nimble.
A member of the audience asks, do you have any thoughts on the use of hydrokinetic power, such as river turbines, as an alternative energy source for the sewage and water board?
I can't really speak intelligently about that.
You talked about the $73 billion overdue. What's being done to collect that money? How is that being collected?
Well, a couple key ways. One, obviously, we utilize the unfortunate shut-off policy where we reach out to a customer who has not been paying their bills. And then the letter is an encouraging letter in terms of we ask you to come to us and tell us why you're not paying, what are you disputing, so we can sit down and figure things out. And it has been very fruitful. The last thing we want to do is shut somebody off, but it's a last resort that we have really gone to. But again, it has been proven effective. We also utilize or outsource the services of an election agency that target the ones at the oldest accounts that are overdue the most or the longest, and with the effort to gain as much of those dollars as possible.
Are there big buildings or businesses that are involved in that $73 billion?
Certainly, a portion of the money that's owed involves some bigger business, commercial and otherwise, yes.
A member of the audience named John says, if you could skip ahead past the incremental improvements, repairs, and fees, what is one visionary thing you would do with an eye toward the next 100 years?
One thing?
One thing.
Oh boy. Across the entire utility.
Yes.
Oh boy. Could be so many. I'm struggling really from an immediate AMI to a water distribution system that 100 years or younger, fully distributed, or a renewable energy that powers our facilities in such a sustainable way. The green infrastructure solutions implemented at such a large scale that allow the city to live comfortably with water. The list goes on and on.
A member of the audience asked, do you plan on adding additional pumps? And I might add to that, based on what happened Sunday, is there a way to improve the system so that kind of rain doesn't lead to flood? I know that there's some things that just are going to overwhelm the system, but that kind of rain, is there a way to improve it so we can get through it without a flood?
Well, we certainly can improve the level of service. Currently the system is designed to address 1 inch an hour, first 1 inch an hour, and then half inch for every hour after that. We could double that. But it takes an enormous amount of dollars and footprint to create that system. But again, we cannot underscore or talk about improving the system just with the great infrastructure alone. It has to have a green infrastructure solution as part of that.
Do you plan on adding more pumps?
Until the master plan is done, really, I would be just making things up at this point. Would we add pumps? Maybe, maybe not. But will the pumps be more efficient? Yes. Will they cost less money? Of course. But that has to all be developed under the comprehensive master plan.
You've talked about the need to consolidate the management of the drainage system under one utility. Can you elaborate on your vision for that? And to what extent does it depend on new funding?
Well, it's pretty simple. You have one drainage system that belongs to 2 entities. And it can work if everybody does their part and everything, but ultimately it would be more ideal and more effective if one entity owns this. And I can tell you, not only I'm advocating for that, DPW is advocating for that. I think the city would be Even the mayor would be very supportive of that. What needs to happen is that the appropriate and adequate funding associated with that responsibility has to be created first, so we can improve on it. And because just one ownership alone is not going to just solve it. Obviously, funding and a more systematic approach to it, but by one entity is the key.
Any sense of how much more funding?
How much more money? We have not really quantified that yet, because again, you have to understand where the level of service is before you quantify the cost associated.
To what extent, you talked about the billing issues and efforts to improve the billing issues, to what extent is the Sewerage and Water Board continuing to estimate bills as opposed to basing them on actual meter readings?
So we estimate roughly 20% or less due to a variety of factors, whether it's accessibility to the meter, whether the meter is maybe scratched up and is not readable, which we immediately fix. But there's this recurring 20% that happens, which really is not a standard that we were happy with. That's why AMI and automated meter infrastructure is a must as we move forward to alleviate and reduce those inaccurate billings to almost none.
What's the timetable for that?
Well, we will be hitting the street with an RFP this year, and it depends on the aggressiveness of the vendors that propose and the cost implications associated with it. The faster, the more expensive. Obviously, because of lack of funding, we're going to have a more relaxed delivery period. But if we come on, we are currently pursuing dollars that may help us with that, and if those are, I guess, become real, then we can expedite the project, and it could happen as early as 2 years from now.
You talked about improving customer service. What steps specifically are you taking to improve customer service?
A variety of steps that we're taking. Obviously, we're bringing more people to focus on the customer experience. We're spending time observing our interaction with folks that come in either to pay a bill, to get a permit for plumbing permit, folks who, our residents who look at us dig a hole and not know why we're digging it. So we're studying that from their eyes and trying to anticipate their questions and their needs and addressing them in advance.
A member of the audience asks, if we do manage to reduce our leakage rate by even 10% or 20%, what's forecast for the city's water table and resultant subsidence?
That's kind of an interesting dynamic. So part of our sanitary sewer system actually take on some of the groundwater or rainwater. And we know that because after a rain event, the volumes of water we treat at our sewer treatment plant just spike like crazy. And I know for a fact that our leaky water mains are kind of, not by design, but they're replenishing that groundwater indirectly. A horrible system, that's not something we do by design, but that's exactly what's happening. Yeah, I almost think that's a silly question in a way, because we should not be relying on distribution of drinking water to replenish the groundwater, but it's happening. And to quantify the impact of if you lessen it or increase it is very difficult to do, but we know it's part of that dynamic that's happening at the ground.
Since the costly part of replacing pipes is the excavation, is there any possibility of working with energy to bury power lines at the same time?
Well, generally speaking, I have to say that our relationship with energy has really, really improved. It's amazing what you can do or what you can learn about your partners when you sit down and you talk to them. We've been meeting on a monthly basis with them. We're taking concrete steps so far, improving and hardening their system. We're looking at ways to create redundancy. We've improved on our communication to each other in terms of if they have any failure anywhere that they believe will impact us, they're communicating with us immediately. As a matter of fact, this past Sunday we had an issue involving energy, and it was a seamless communication.
One of the pumps went out because
correct. although it did not really have any significant impact because the power went out to a pump that was not running or functioning at the time. So it was really no harm, no foul, but nonetheless, we went through the procedure of communicating and alerting each other of how we were impacting each other, and it all worked out just well.
There was discussion that might have been a lightning strike. Do you know for sure what happened there?
I'm not sure exactly what caused it, but that's what I heard as well. I haven't heard or seen an actual report.
A member of the audience asks Mr. Korban, what is our responsibility as citizens and consumers to contribute to solving the problems that you're discussing?
What is that, sir?
Responsibility of consumers and citizens to help solve these problems you're talking about.
Well, there are a few things that a customer or resident or a citizen can do. An example I just stated before, a catch basin. Adopt the catch basin, clean it. When it comes to billing, if you feel that you're being inaccurately billed, come to the table and don't hide or don't disappear. Face it, and we promise you fairness in time and equity. We will sit down with you and figure things out. So there are a lot of things that our folks can do to help us help them.
What can green infrastructure innovations, what could they do to impact improvement in the city drainage system? And how can the Sewage and Water Board or city policy best promote usage of green innovations?
A green infrastructure solution done well and right and at a large scale will have a tremendous impact on protecting the city from potential flooding. It will definitely add a layer of protection that great infrastructure cannot, because there's so much you can do with canals and pipes and pumps.
Can you give some examples of what would be?
Yeah, you look at a topography and then look where water wants to go and assess the purpose that footprint serves currently versus can we use it for a large scale green infrastructure so we can hold water and allow water to go where it wants to and without causing any damage to the surrounding environment. And that would be not as simple but a very effective way to do it.
Certainly you knew this job was a challenge when you accepted it. Now that you've been on the job for several months, what would you say is the biggest obstacle to improving the Sewage and Water Board, and what are the most promising ways of overcoming it?
You guys are making it very difficult by saying one. Funding certainly is a very tough challenge. I didn't think I would spend so much of my time looking for money, talking to people about money. Certainly the flexibility of functioning and operating as a more nimble and robust entity on behalf of our customers is a challenge. I think we're somewhat stymied by some rules that hinder our progress, and that does not allow us to move forward at the same pace we want to move forward. Those could be two. I know I cheated already, but I don't have to.
Thank you, Mr. Korban. That's all the time we have for questions.